I'm here with attorney Brian Bromberg discussing consumer protection issues. Brian, I'd like to ask you, what is a judgment and how does someone become aware they have a judgment against them?
Well, most often in the kind of work I do, we're talking about money judgments, which is when when a judge decides that you owe money and that you must pay it. And then a judgment is entered in the court, and there's a legal obligation to pay that money at that point. Regardless of whether there was a legal obligation before, at that point that money is due and owing and has to be paid, if it can be paid. Now, the problem is a lot of times those judgments get entered on default. A lot of times people don't even know about them, and before any judgment can be entered, a summons and complaint has to be filed and then served on a consumer. And frequently, unfortunately, in New York, the summonses and complaints end up in the garbage. They end up in the sewer. Or they end up getting served on old addresses. People move a lot in New York. It's a very mobile society. People go from apartment to apartment for whatever reason. And it's not in the interests of debt collection law firms or debt buyers or credit card companies to find out your new address. They'd rather get the default judgment against you. So it becomes a problem because you don't find out about it until they try garnishing your wages or freezing your bank account, or you try buying an apartment or a house, and all of a sudden, or getting a car loan, and all of a sudden there's a judgment on your credit report, or your money's they're threatening to take your money from your employer, or they're threatening to take money from your bank account, or all your checks bounce on your bank account. And suddenly you're confronted with this default judgment that you knew nothing about.
And if it's a default judgment, it ultimately was granted because of a failure to respond. Whether or not that is a legitimate debt, or whether or not you should have been obligated to pay it, the default results because of a failure to respond. Maybe you didn't get the notice, or maybe you weren't aware, but if you don't respond, that's when the default judgment comes your way.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
If you don't respond, there's a high likelihood there's going to be a default judgment.
And so what are the options for someone that then has a default judgment against them?
When there's a default judgment, the first thing anyone should do is pick up the phone and call a lawyer. Call someone with experience dealing with these cases, because that lawyer is going to have to bring what's called an order to show cause, which is a fancy way of saying that you're making a motion, that you're asking the court to vacate the judgment and let you put in an answer or let you try and throw the case out. So immediate first thing when you find out about a default judgment, frequently because of garnishment, freezing of bank accounts, not being able to get some kind of loan, first thing you do, pick up the phone, call an experienced lawyer, someone who's experienced with debt defense work, who can help you out here and bring that order to show cause on your behalf. Second thing is, take your cell phone, go down to court, try and get a copy of the file from the court. Don't try and put in an order to show cause yourself. You want to speak with a lawyer before you do that, so you know what you're doing. Don't try and make that motion on your own. Go down to court, ask for a copy of the file. If they say, would you like to file an order to show cause, you say, you know what, I'd like to talk with a lawyer first. Get a copy of that file, scan or photograph every single page of that file, as well as the outside of the file, and then head to your appointment with your lawyer.
Okay, and to wrap this up, if you find that you have a judgment against you, you really don't want to ignore it by any means, because it is affecting your credit, it affects your ability to get a loan, it affects your ability to take a mortgage out on a house, and that's often when people are finding it out.
Yes. A default judgment, or any judgment for that matter, can seriously affect your credit. Here's the basic problem. In New York, money judgments are collectible for up to 20 years. This thing is going to follow you around for up to 20 years. and it can hound you, it can make your life miserable. And you go in for security clearance at a job, it can come up. You go in to try and get an apartment or a house, it can come up. 20 years this can follow you around, and people can try and collect on it. You have got to deal with it as soon as possible after finding out about it, and you got to contact an experienced lawyer.
Okay, thank you. That is helpful. Let's, after the break down some of the different areas in which money is attempted to be collected. I understand there's frozen bank accounts, there's wage garnishments, and there's also property liens. I wonder if you can share some more information about those after we take a short break.
Sure. Hello, I'm Brian Bromberg of the Bromberg Law Office. Having your identity stolen can be a frightening experience. It can also cause serious problems for you that can be extremely difficult to fix on your own. Here at the Bromberg Law Office, we have immense experience dealing with identity theft cases and have the knowledge to help you put your life back together. If you have had your identity stolen, do not try to go it alone. Call us and put our knowledge and experience to work for you. We have been defending consumer rights since 1999.